Hey guys, it's Krista from Sawmill Ridge, and if you've been following along in our barn renovation, you know I keep talking about the exciting history of the homestead. Well, it turns out I was completely wrong about almost everything. The good news is I actually do know the truth and the history of the farm now, and I cannot wait to tell you how this crazy story led me right back to the beginning. So first off, how did I even find any of this historical information? Well, I started with what I had. The deed from when Kevin, my husband's grandfather, purchased the farm from Elmer Bashore on November 27th of 1950. Now, he purchased it from Elmer's estate after his passing. From there, I started doing some research on genealogy websites like Family Search, Find a Grave, and Ancestry. And through that census information that I found, I knew that Elmer was unmarried and lived with his mother Amanda and his sister Minnie. I was initially very taken by the family, and many locals told me about the neighboring Bashore farm, which is a very similar farmhouse that is right down the street from ours. So I assumed after seeing the census from that time that Elmer's older brother took over the family farm, and Elmer purchased the farm down the street to take his widowed mother and his unmarried sister to go live. So then when I looked for the deed where Elmer obtained the property, I found one from 1917 in which Elmer purchased the land from the estate of Robert McMean. I did that same genealogy style research, as well as looking at the Library of Congress for old newspaper clippings, and I found so much fantastic information about Robert, who was a very well-known and wealthy Mifflintown lawyer, and he summered at his farm. He was a bit of a local celebrity, and the newspaper reported of his travels to weddings and even when they attended dinner parties. Land was purchased by Elmer from the estate of Robert McMean after his death. Now, Robert McMean purchased 147 acres from Isaac Benner in 1901. Isaac Benner had purchased it from Ezra Smith in 1892, and it was during that transfer of the property that I found this amazing article in the newspaper describing the property and saying that it included a bank barn, a dwelling house, an orchard, a vineyard, and woodland. Ezra Smith had taken over the property due to being the last remaining descendant of David Coffman. Through some research at the Juniata County Historical Society, I found amazing information on the Coffmans and the Gingrich families who established this amazing farm described in that sales ad. David had originally obtained this land in 1807 when the area was still considered Mifflin County. David built his mansion home as well as a bank barn and outbuildings, a spring house, a quarry, a lime kiln, and a sawmill. So much more. The sawmill made us particularly excited because Kevin's grandfather originally purchased our farm for the timber and for the sawmill back in 1950. So this whole Coffman Gingrich family from that time period is buried on that original property. And one day a few weeks ago, Kevin showed me where the cemetery was on the way back from working in the barn. But it was then that I started to realize that something was not jiving in the story. And then I saw the stone house, which was the same one described in a Coffman book I read at the Historical Society. The home had a cornerstone with the date of 1822, and I realized that all this amazing history that I had found and I thought belonged to our beautiful Sawmill Ridge really belongs to the stone mansion around the corner. So when I realized this, at first I just gave up on my history research because I felt like I would just have to start over from the beginning, and so I just stopped for a while. Until one day, Ancestry sent me an email and said that I had a new hint. It was a map I had never seen before, and when I clicked on it, it was a property owner's atlas from 1877. And on our property, at the exact place where our farmhouse now stands, was a dot representing a house, and that owner was identified as P. Bashore. But it couldn't be right because the farm next door was the Bashore farm, and this farm was just where Elmer lived with his mom and his sister when Kevin's grandfather purchased it. So I took what I knew back to the local Historical Society, and I asked my favorite historian, Shirley, for help. So she pulled out the original atlas that the Ancestry had showed, and then another atlas from just a couple years different. And it showed 2 dwellings belonging to Peter Bashore on our property. So in the meantime, I did some research on Amanda Bashore while I was at the Historical Society and found that her husband's name was Peter. He passed away at 39 years old of pneumonia. Just then, Shirley found a microfiche with Peter Bashore's estate documents on it. This confirmed everything. Peter's death was at 39 years old. He left 5 minor children and his wife behind. The first thing we knew was the sheer size of the farm was impressive. The second thing was there was a great deal of debt, including an $11,000 note to his father, David Bashore. After digging through a few more pages, we found the gold nugget. When Peter was first deceased, there was a document filed naming his brother Andrew the executor. And then on the second page it states about a house and a tract of land, bound on the north by the lands of James Dunn, others on the east by the lands of Joseph Long, others on the south by the lands of Ezra Smith and Samuel Coffman, and others on the west of the late John Garver, deceased. It contained 185 acres, more or less, having thereon erected a large brick and frame dwelling house and a frame bank barn, with other outbuildings being on the same tract of land which David Bashore and Mary, his wife, by their deed the first day of April 1868, conveyed to said Peter Bashore, who is now deceased. So there it is. The house, the bank barn were both built between 1868 and 1879. Peter had purchased the farm from his father, and then at his death, his family remained there. Her eldest son went to live in Harrisburg. Roswell built the farm next door, what we knew as the Bashore farm, and Elmer stayed home, eventually taking over the farming responsibilities and living with his mom, Amanda, and his little sister, Minnie. And that's just the start. I can't wait to tell you what else I've learned about this amazing family and why now I am so proud to be restoring the farm now that I know what I know. But here's the question. How did I go so wrong in my research? When I did the deed research, I used references to past deeds to track the ownership backwards. So how did I mess it all up? Well, so if you go back to the very first deed, when Kevin's grandpa bought the farm from Elmer, that's where I screwed up. In this deed, we had 2 tracts of land. Here's the catch. When I first started researching, I didn't use the reference number of the deeds and the pages because I was just looking for when Elmer purchased the land by searching his name, and found the deed where Elmer purchased 147 acres from Robert McMean. But the house was never even on that. The house was built on the tract of land with 56 acres and not those 147, which actually were attached to the Coffman farmstead and that beautiful stone house. So what should I have done differently? Well, when I went to the local courthouse to start looking up the deeds, I should have read that entire deed line by line. Instead of getting excited and jumping on to the next one and trying to find out who else owned it, I should have made notes on what I was reading in plain English with the acres and the references to previous deeds, and then I should have used those hints to find the previous deeds. So do I regret all the research I did and that I was looking at the wrong house? Not at all. I have such a better understanding of the whole valley and how it came to be, and I think I'm even going to continue to do more research on the history of the entire area. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I have another video to tell you more about the amazing Bashore family that lived inside of our farmhouse, and I even have a historic photo that I can't wait to share with you. So thank you for watching. If you like this type of history lesson, please leave a comment and let me know so that I can tell you more about it, because I know it's just very dear to my heart. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. It helps more people to be able to see us, and we will see you next time at Sawmill Ridge.